are going live, as they say. So we're live on Facebook now, but we'll just give people, like I say, a few bits to catch up. Where have you hidden everybody in the house?
I'm actually out on the houseboat.
That's perfect.
Yeah, Steve, the babies, and Logan all in the other side of the garden that way.
And you won't be able to hear them.
No.
It's so hard, isn't it? The other day I was down here. We've got like an office in the bottom of the garden, and I was down here, and I think I could hear Tom shouting at the kids from the bottom of the garden, and all the windows were closed, and it's just kids, isn't it? How old's Logan now?
He'll be 2 at the end of July. Yeah, so he might come and try and find me at some point, but I think we'll be all right.
Everybody will love that. Right, let's get started, because, you know, babies and children, although I'm trying to like squeeze it out as much as possible so I don't have to do bedtime. Okay, so I'm Helen Williams. I'm parkrunner A6014, and I'm the event director of Harrogate Junior Parkrun here in the UK, and alongside Vassos Alexander, the co-presenter of the free weekly timed podcast. Before we start, I'd just like to recommend that after this conversation, people check out the many social media channels in the UK and across the world, as well as subscribing to the various parkrun podcasts out there. You'll find me on the Free Weekly Time podcast, but there's also With Me Now, Parkrun Adventurers, and the 9:30 Club, to name a few others. So before we get going, for people who are joining, thank you very much. We would love you to put your comments down below, and all your questions we can put to Helen. The lovely Kirsty from HQ will pull out all the best ones, and we can ask Helen them at the end of the Q&A. So without further ado, for today's question and answers, I'm joined by the wonderful Helen Glover. At the 2012 Olympics in summer, in the sport of rowing, and in partnership with Heather Stanning, Helen set the Olympic record and won the gold medal in the women's coxless pairs, which was the amazingly wonderful inaugural gold medal won by Team GB in 2012, and the first ever Olympic gold medal for British women's rowing. Helen is now a 2-time Olympic champion, a triple world champion, quintuple World Cup champion, and triple European champion. In 2017, she set a parkrun PB of 19:44, and since then has become a mum of 3, returned to parkrun, and like the rest of us, been stuck in lockdown for the last few months. Hi Helen, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
How are you?
Yeah, doing really well. Like you say, it's nice to have an excuse to escape the house for a minute in the evening bedtime routine.
It's great, isn't it? What have the last few months been like? Have you been able to escape to the houseboat and said to Steve you've gone somewhere else?
Not really. So I had twins just in January, just in time for the lockdown. So my family met the twins, and then pretty much when they were about 8 weeks old, 7 weeks old, we went into lockdown. And so actually it's almost been, those first few weeks especially were quite nice, because I'm someone who likes to just get out the door first thing in the morning and drag along the children, and we'll go and do something, and everything's quite hectic. And it made me kind of just sit there and feed them and make sure we have a routine. It's something which never happened with Logan, my 2-year-old. We actually have a bit of a routine going, so that was great. On the other hand, you know, obviously it's a sad and difficult time for many people, and I think that it's hard, and there's so much in the world that we're kind of really contemplating right now, and it's giving us a chance to sit and do that. But it's definitely, I think, getting tough and getting quite hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, we're at a funny place now, aren't we? We're not there yet, and
yeah,
it feels tricky, doesn't it? And having, you know, you've got twins, so twins and a 2-year-old. That's 3 children under 3, and for anybody who's been there, I didn't do that. I didn't, you know, and my sanity is borderline, and ours are 8 and 5 now, you know. But it is really hard. But let's start in 2012, because it was such a wonderful home Olympics, and 2012 was such a great time, although it does feel like it was an absolute lifetime away, doesn't it? What was the build up like as you going into something? Did you have any pressure, or did you like going in without people really knowing who you were?
Yeah, definitely. So, do you know what? The build up from London was really strange for me because 4 years before London, I wasn't a rower. I started through a talent ID scheme, which transferred me over from running and hockey, which were my first loves really. It transferred me over to rowing just as I was leaving uni, and they were looking for tall people to start rowing. And so I got on this scheme just 4 years before. So it felt really quick and it felt really sudden. And for that reason, that Olympic build up was nice because I was just celebrating everything. I was celebrating becoming an Olympian. I was celebrating getting onto the British rowing team. All these firsts were happening for me in that year of 2012. So when I arrived, I remember there was so much excitement and fanfare around all the Olympians, and there were lots of interview requests. And I remember turning down pretty much every single one of them because I loved being unknown. And even though Heather and I were going in as favourites in our event, we made a really quick progression, especially that last 12 months. I thought, I don't want anyone to know. Like, why would I want people talking about our chances when we know and the community around us knows? But I really enjoyed being the underdog and being the unknown because I think there was enough pressure as it was being at home games.
Amazing. I've got goosebumps thinking about it. And you obviously won the final. What was that like? Talk us through it. Because I remember seeing an interview with Matthew Pinsent who said that unless he'd thrown up before an event, he wasn't nervous enough. Have you got any kind of things like that before really important races? What was that like?
Yeah, well, I think for London, our coach basically spoke to us all the time about making it normal, just normalising it, pretending it's just another race and just another day, because the occasion would just seem so big. I mean, it's a rowing venue with 40,000 people in the grandstands around you. We're not used to this. We're not used to this kind of attention, and it could get a little bit too big and be overawed by the situation. So we tried to make it feel really normal, to the point that before our event, we found a little quiet corner and we were playing a game called Bananagrams, and we were sat there. It's a bit like Scrabble, and we were playing this game, and we had this argument before we went on the water with our coach because he said he won with the word trumpety. We were like, that's not a word, and we were like, okay, right, let's put the game away now, get our heads back in the game. But it was really, we had to keep doing things like that, forcing ourselves to just take ourselves out of the moment because there was so much intensity and pressure, especially by the morning of the Olympic final, because like you say, we hadn't won a gold medal at that point, and things definitely changed. At 11 a.m. on race day, there was so much awareness that actually if we won, we were going to be the first gold of Team GB of the Olympics.
So
it's something that you couldn't not be aware. I think we tried to hide from it, we tried to pretend, we tried to bury our heads in the sand a bit, but it was on the newspapers that you tried to avoid. It was on, all the social media that I turned my phone off, but you just still get this information through telling you that you could be the first gold of the games. And no matter how much you try to avoid it, nowadays it's just out there, isn't it? So,
it is.
Yeah, we were definitely aware of that.
What was the moment like when you won and you'd got the inaugural gold and all that hard work, which was in really quick succession for you? What was it like? You're sat in the water. Did you give yourselves time? It seems really, it seems such a shame, doesn't it, to be able to focus enough. You have to block everything out, and at the same time you want to be able to enjoy it and not make it normal because it's massive, isn't it?
Do you know what? That's hit the nail on the head, because I had normalised it so much in my head that when I crossed the line, I felt relief. I felt really relieved that we hadn't made a mistake. But because I had made it feel so normal, I couldn't understand what I'd just done. And it took me 6 months to call myself Olympic champion because it felt like it had happened to someone else. Those two things, that little old me coming from a small town in Cornwall who had never even dreamt of rowing until she was 21, suddenly standing on the podium at a home games, having a gold medal, it really, really felt like it should happen to someone else. And so, yeah, because I had made it seem so normal, I couldn't understand that I'd just done it. Yeah.
So even when you were sat in the water, absolutely spent from your all-out effort, it was still, it was 6 months later that you didn't really feel like that was real. So would you go back and watch it, or?
I think I did watch it. And actually watching it does make you feel, because I can remember every moment. Like I think a lot of people, sometimes when you have a really good performance, you can't remember it. But I do remember bits of that race, and I do remember that moment. And it's actually quite special because it's the last bit of me before I became an Olympic champion. And so many people kind of know you as an Olympic champion, but actually you're just the same person. It just so happened that you crossed the line first one day. So that was just that last time that I wasn't an Olympic champion. So, but I can remember that race quite well.
And obviously it's life changing. So your life was obviously a whirlwind probably from then on, past 6 months from there. But I've got a little list here of, you had a gold post box, which is lovely. You had a stamp, which obviously would have had you on. You had a fuchsia named after you. I'm desperate to know what the gold blue Peter badge lets you do. And of course you got an MBE. So how does all that feel?
Yeah, it's really nice because I think that you can train really hard for your event, and the hard work that you put in usually equals the result you get. But with all that other stuff, it's stuff that people have looked at you and sort of bestowed upon you and decided you're worthy of. And so it's really special to have other people feel, no matter how you are, how you've done, other people feel that you deserve this thing. And so I think that's what's special about all those things. Yeah.
What can you do with the gold blue Peter badge?
Do you know what? I don't actually know. I haven't actually used it. I figure I can get access to
the moon,
the zoo. Yeah, I was going to say zoos, but we can go for the moon. That's, let's aim high.
I mean, it's gold, right? You should be able to. If we go back in time, so obviously, you've been fast tracked on this amazing course in 4 years, and here you are with an Olympic medal. But that doesn't just come out of nowhere. That you've obviously got an amazing athletic background, and just looking at the things, so we took this from Wikipedia, so just let me know if any of this is wrong, but this is just as impressive. So it says, as a junior you ran cross country and middle distance track both for Cornwall and internationally for England, winning a junior international gold medal for England in cross country running. You played tennis for Cornwall, swam for Cornwall, captained the Cornish hockey team, and by the age of 14 was part of the England satellite squad for hockey. Your best UK athletic rankings were 23rd for 800 metres, 9th for 1500 metres and 18th for 3000 metres. So you've obviously got this amazing kind of engine before you've even got in a rowing boat. So where does all of that ability come from? Like what's got you into all of these, and why are you so good at them all?
I think I was really fortunate that I found what I love, and what I love was sport. And that became for me identity. I think when you're younger, I think it's something that people crave, isn't it? Especially when you're in your teens and you're at secondary school, to have an identity, especially one that's so positive,
yes,
was something that was really good for me. And so I was good at sport, and so therefore I embraced it. I wasn't massively academic, so that was me, and that was my thing. I'm also really lucky to come from a highly athletic but highly competitive family. So I was always chasing my brothers around and we were always trying to win at everything, against my brothers and sisters, with two very supportive parents. My dad in particular was very good at sport. He played rugby to a high level. It's very kind of multi-sport based, a bit like I was. But my mum and my dad would drive me across the country every weekend, and again, not pushing me, but all under my own steam, me wanting to drive that passion, but purely because I love it. And I think if anybody had told 13-year-old me that I was going to be winning Olympic gold, that would have blown my tiny little mind.
You even beat, I love this, you even beat Alistair Brownlee in time over 100 metres in Superstars, which is brilliant. You say you were fast tracked and you were obviously spotted, but how does that work? How do you get spotted and end up being rowing becoming your main sport? Was it something that because obviously you say you were running and you were playing hockey at quite a high level. When you got into a boat or on a Concept 2, was that just something that clicked for you that made you jump?
No, so I had never even thought about rowing before, and when London won the bid for the Olympic Games, there were a few talent ID programs that came out. So the one that I was on was called Sporting Giants, and I hadn't heard of it. I was in my last couple of weeks at university going on to become a PE teacher. And my mum called me up and she was like, there's this advert in the newspaper. They're measuring people. It's something about going to the Olympics. And do you know what? I was 21. And I thought this could be it. You know, I felt like I'd missed the boat on a few of these things. I felt like I'd never quite had the self-belief, never quite followed through with any of the sports that I had all this potential with. And it took me till I was a bit older to think, hang on, like, it doesn't just have to happen to other people. I wonder if this could be how it happens to me. And I applied online. You have to put in your height and a few kind of basic measurements. And then they tested 3,000 girls and 3,000 boys in their, you know, how far they could jump, how hard they could go on some fitness tests, and they measured their arm span and their height. I was incorrect. I wasn't nearly as tall as I thought I was, and I was the shortest person there. I'm still 5'9.5", so I'm quite tall, but on average, all the other girls there were about 6'2". Okay. And so I thought, I'm going to have to fight for this. And so every fitness test, everything I did, I was just trying to push and push and push. And then I think about 30 or 40 girls from that testing got asked to start rowing. And I had to move to Bath. I got given a coach. I was doing my teacher training and became a teacher to fund my training. And it was just this switch that came on. And it was funny because I didn't love rowing before. I started it to go to the Olympics. I didn't care if I loved it. I didn't care if I enjoyed it. I learned to love it through the challenge of doing it. But it was just going to be my last attempt, and I threw everything at it for that 4 years.
So when you started, you get a rowing coach, do they put you straight in the water, or do you get on a Concept 2 machine and learn how to hurt yourself? How does the program work?
Yeah, a bit of both. You do go straight in the water, and our coach Paul, he was amazing, but he was definitely on the tough love scale of things. And so he put us out in single sculls, which are about this narrow, and basically to try and get you to fall in and see who the tough ones were, who would keep getting in the boat again. And then some on the rowing machine, because obviously it's just a really good way to get your fitness up. So we're trying to fast track everything, not only our rowing skills, but our fitness as well. So there was a bit balance between the two.
So do you think was that a deliberate thing for the Olympics, that they had a gap, that they could see that they just didn't have enough women to push through, and they were actually looking for somebody for Olympic hopeful in 4 years before that?
Well, what they were doing was they had used, it was actually an Australian model that they had looked at, and there were 3 sports, volleyball, handball and rowing, that height gives you a big advantage for. So it made sense to look for height first, and then when they had all the information about all the fitness, they funneled people into the sports they thought would be appropriate. So that's how they worked out who would go for which sport.
Oh, it sounds hard work. I love the fact that you just wanted to be at the Olympics and you got there. That is brilliant. So we all know, those of us out there, park runners alike and park walkers and volunteers and men, we can include men because they are part of this, but having children is somewhat of a roller coaster. For a female athlete, it can be really challenging to let go of training. I think particularly, like you were saying, you've got routine with the babies, and that's only because you're forced into this structured, lockdown is, we're stuck, aren't we? But obviously when you had Logan, with your first, you have to swap your identity, don't you, as a woman, to put your goals and your fitness aside. And how was that, coming off the back from being an elite athlete into being a mom?
Yeah, a real balancing act. And I think that whether you're an athlete or not, I think you can identify with the fact that there's a balance that has to shift, whether it's your work or your social life, or there's always a shift in something. And I think for me, it was always working out my priorities, and my priority has forever changed. There will never be a point in my life where sport comes first. My children will always come first. And I think knowing that is the kind of the foundation for how I, plan my day. However, there has to be a point as well where your fitness, your mental health, and the things that you do are really important as well. And I know that I found very, very quickly with Logan that the days where I got up and managed to get 30 minutes of exercise in were the days where I felt like a better mum, because for the rest of the day I had more energy and I felt good. I felt like I had that recharge and reset button. And I felt more lethargic on the days where I didn't train. So that's definitely something that I've tried to do with the twins as well, is kind of use the fact that we've got a chance to have a routine to find windows in the day where I can train. So work out when they nap and do something then. And actually having Steve, my husband, around, he should be away right now, so he's here so he can be more hands-on, and he knows, he's amazing because he really knows how important exercise and training is for me, so he will always find windows in the day to make that happen.
And I think as a mom, what you don't realise is how immediate that shift is. So, you know, before you have kids, you might always know that you're going to keep fit or stay fit or want to or still have aspirations, but it's amazing how immediate that change is. The second you have them, there's still this desire to feel something of yourself, isn't there? But they definitely overtake that, and it can be quite intense, I think, that feeling, can't it, of that need to always be there. I can remember after we'd had our first one, I can remember going for my first run and having crazy thoughts like, what am I doing going out for a run? What happens if I'm kidnapped? And what happens if I'm kidnapped and then she's at home with Tom and he won't know what to do? And I had all of these weird, yet at the same time that need to be able to have your own space is so important, isn't it? To make yourself, just like you say, just to make yourself feel like you is still in there amongst the baby sick and the poo and the cuddles and the kisses and the...
Yeah, totally. And I think that's one of the big things at Park Run, is that it feels really inclusive. And whether it's a family turning up to watch the mum do their run, or whether it's a mum or a dad running with a buggy or anything like that, I think every time I see a dad that's running with a buggy, I'm thinking either the partner's at home in bed or they're out there running. And I think it's a really nice space to be able to do that.
A park run is awesome, and we can go back to that. But how do you come back from having children? Have you got aspirations from now? So obviously you've had Logan, and then did you get fit in between? There's not a very big gap in between that either. So obviously, and now you've got twins, so you've really got your hands full. Have you got plans for future races or?
Do you know what? I don't know. I think I'll always have plans for something. So there's lots of big sort of challenges that my husband and I want to do together. So there's some kayaking things that my husband and I want to do. I'd love to do something like the Marathon des Sables one day. There's all these kind of large I did a half Ironman after having Logan. I'd like to do a full Ironman one day just as a challenge. So yes, there are things I'd like to do, but whether that goes into sort of a professional realm of going back to rowing or anything like that, I think would be a really, really big ask, just in terms of balancing lifestyle and things like that. But there's definitely something in me that likes to have these challenges. Some days I wish I didn't. Some days I don't. But...
Do you still row?
Yeah, I do.
Oh. You've just dropped out, Helen.
It's good because if I get out of the house when I'm training, if I get out of the house when I'm training, then I can't go and sort of give someone a quick feed or pick someone up. It's just done quickly out the house, and then I'm back in and I'm mum again.
So just because you just dropped out there for me, I don't know if you did for everybody else. Do you run? Is that what you said in that gap, or do you row? I just missed that.
Either, yeah, but.
Either.
At the moment, I'm getting out because it's been nice weather lately. I've been out on the water a little bit.
So we chatted when we had a chat earlier in the week, and I loved the fact that one of your ambitions as an Olympic athlete was to get a sub-20 park run. That was on your tick list, wasn't it? To get back there.
Definitely. I think when I was thinking before I had the twins, I made a list of things that I want to do. It's kind of like how many by 3-4 months in. After having them, I want to do this many chin-ups, I want to squat this much, I want to get this time on the park run. And I think that for me, park run is kind of integrated now into my way of thinking about fitness.
And of course, we can go back to lockdown and having babies, because you would have just been starting to get back fit again. I imagine you tread in the water now of getting out to do that 30 minutes in the morning, and of course you had the babies in January, is that right?
Yeah.
And so you're 4 months old, and here they are, 8 weeks in, wasn't it? You were saying, and lockdown happens, and there's no park run. Can you feel that that's not there on a Saturday, like everybody else who's listening, who's missing it dreadfully?
Yeah, and you know what? I think that parkrun, I have just loved it from the beginning, and I think even from when I was rowing and I wasn't doing parkruns because it just a rower running is not a sight you want to see. But but honestly, I've just loved it from the beginning. My mum and my sister do it religiously, and when I go home to Cornwall, I'll always try to go along to parkrun with them, and I've seen what it's done for them. I just see, you know, them all turn up and everybody chatting and everyone having a conversation, and it genuinely, I'm not saying this just because I'm on the parkrun forum, it genuinely is an event like no other. I honestly can't think of, I've been involved in so many sports and so many different levels, but I see, you know, when you use the word community so easily in sport is a big community, but parkrun is a community like no other. People who have never even considered running and don't consider themselves a runner. And then, but I'm like, you are a runner. You're going to parkrun every week, and whether you're walking or whether you're doing it to get fit or lose weight or get out of the house or whatever it is, they're the most incredible stories. And so, yeah, it's always exciting for me to kind of go home and be able to go back to the parkrun in Cornwall, or I use the Maidenhead parkrun up here where I am. And it's just always, you're kind of guaranteed to get this amazing sense of community every time you go.
And I think, you know, for park runners, you know, most of us can't feel what you've felt like to win a gold medal, or to be, you know, it's amazing at all of the sports we've done. But I think what you're touching on there, really, for people who do park run, it's like, that is their gold medal, isn't it? That's mine on a Saturday morning. If I want to hurt myself and run really hard, I can do that. And if I don't, I want to chat and run around with a friend, it's equally like having a gold medal, isn't it? It's like the best kind of feel-good thing you can have while you're out there.
It is. There's something about crossing a line. There's something about crossing a...
Yeah. Oh, you've just dropped out again. Come back.
Oh, have I just dropped out?
You dropped out, yeah. You dropped out.
Oh, sorry. No, I was saying, yeah, you've achieved something first thing in the morning on a Saturday. Like, what a great way to start the weekend, being able to cross the finishing line, and no matter whether you've pushed yourself that week or had an easy week or whatever it is, you've had this achievement.
It's amazing, isn't it? And I feel like with parkrun, the community is almost, you know, people who are watching now who might be rowing fans and might be park runners, it's like everybody knows about parkrun, and it's like everybody is that community, and you could go to any parkrun and have the same feeling everywhere, which is really nice, which is unusual, isn't it? Because everything, look, if you were racing, you would go to a race and it would look the same, but it might not feel the same in terms of what's around you. But with parkrun, there's something, it's inclusive without really realising it, isn't it? And it just feels so nice to be in that environment.
Yeah, well, my mum and I were in Australia last year, and so my husband was working out there, and we were in a couple of places. We went along to their parkruns, and it could have been our local parkrun. It felt the same as the parkrun down the road feels. And do you know what? Even as an Olympian, I feel intimidated going into a lot of places. If I go into a new gym and I'm not sure about the layout, if I go to a race or an event, I feel nervous and anxious just kind of because I don't know what's going on. But I didn't feel that at parkrun, because you're going into something familiar. You're going to something that's the other side of the world, but is instantly comforting because you know it, and you know that the people are going to be warm and welcoming, and you know that you're going to just feel that sense of achievement wherever you are in the world.
Yeah, I love that. So James Cracknell's run a marathon on Saturday on his Concept 2 machine. Have you ever fancied that? Have you ever done one?
Absolutely not. He's absolutely crazy. I'm not a fan of the rowing machine just because it hurts. It's horrible. I'm the biggest fan of the rowing machine and what it does for your fitness, but No, James Cracknell's a bit crazy in my books for doing a marathon on the rowing machine.
I'm going to throw in a question here from me before we've got we've got 8 questions. If anybody else wants to ask, I'm just about to hit the viewer questions. So if you've got any more questions, do chuck them in at the bottom. So I'm going to ask one selfishly for me, Helen. I've stupidly entered the British Rowing Virtual Indoor Championships. They're virtual now because obviously they've been cancelled. Because we got a rowing machine in January without ever knowing anything like this was going to happen, just to kind of use it as a fitness tool. What's the best Concept 2 training session for 2,000 metres, which is the event I've entered?
I would say doing something like sets of 500 metres with a short break. So maybe something like 6 times 500 meters with a minute break. So you understand, it helps you understand pacing. So you get to kind of feel the rhythm, get into the rhythm, but also it's a horrible session for building lactic acid and not giving you quite enough rest in between. So each one should hurt a little bit more.
Oh yeah, that sounds hideous. I did 5 by 500s, but I had 3 minutes, so clearly in between I need to change that. that sounds hideous. I shall do that. Right, so on to the questions from our lovely viewers. Kate Merritt says, good evening, Helen. What rep range do you work with when you're training? And she's got squats or lunges, etc. Hopefully be back in Kernow soon.
Oh, hiya, and fellow Cornish person there. Yeah, so I usually do sets of 6 to 8 and about four sets of each. So 4 times 8 or 4 times 6. Don't usually, I mean, sometimes in the summer when I was rowing and we were working up to a race, that we would drop down to sets of 5, even 3. But in rowing, it's kind of a real mixture of endurance and power. And so those reps and ranges worked well for me.
Okay, Jack Perryman, he says, will you be involved with mentoring current GB rowers towards Tokyo or involved with commentary at Tokyo at all?
Do you know what? There's actually a big drive to start a mentoring scheme for the British rowers. And I was involved up until I had the twins. And then life became a little too hectic to be able to feel like I could fully, give myself to that role. But I think it's something that I'll definitely want to be involved with in the future for future rowers. I think especially looking long term, I think being able to give my experience to not even just rowers. I think across different sports, there are especially the same mental approaches to competition, to nerves, to training as there are in other sports. So I think, I'd love to be able to kind of give back because the sport has given me so much. So I feel like it's really, really important to be able to give something back to that community.
And, Tokyo is not even definitely going to happen in 2021, is it? So what's the word with other athletes? How do they feel about training? How would you have felt if you were in this position and you're kind of in limbo? What's that like as an athlete? That must be so tricky.
I have a lot of sympathy for the athletes that were all but on the plane really to the Olympics, and I kind of think the only option for any athlete that's going to 2020 and is now hoping to go to 2021, that I kind of think the only option is to assume it will go ahead. Because if you have any inkling or any niggle in your head of thinking, it might not happen, then the motivation is hard enough to get up and get out of bed and get on a rowing machine as it is. So if you think that your goal isn't even going to happen, then it must be really difficult every single day for these athletes. It must be really tough. It's kind of to trick your brain into having the commitment that you would have had if it was happening in 6 months' time. Yeah. But I think if it was me, that's what I'd probably be trying to do. Just use it as a bit of a use it. And I think it's also really important for athletes to allow themselves right now to just kind of step back and everybody's going through different things, and kind of step back and appreciate that. Actually, it kind of makes you realise, wow, think there are bigger things than sport going on. And when you're in the run up to the Olympics, it's the most important thing in your life. You can't imagine something being more important until a global pandemic hits and you realise sport is a luxury. We're really lucky to have it. So many things are a luxury. That comes second to people's health and people's mental health and your family's happiness and all these things. And I think it puts into a perspective how lucky we are to be Olympians to be doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, actually. Diane Hawthorne Thwaite says, my 4-year-old granddaughter Evie has registered on her 4th birthday in lockdown for her first park run. What advice would you give her to prepare? What advice would you give a 4-year-old?
Oh, that's so sweet. I would say, and I'd say this to especially children, but anybody, just really make sure you enjoy it. You know, don't go there with any pressure on yourself. You can think about goals and you think about times later on if you want to, but try to run with a smile. Even at the Olympics, a piece of advice that my coach gave me was at the start line, smile.
Oh,
really? So no matter if you're at the start line of a park run or a start line of Olympic Games, if you smile and if you remind yourself that you're there because you want to be there, then I think you're just more likely to have fun and probably get the best out of yourself.
I love that. Somebody else has said, there's a bit of post-box bingo challenge going on at the moment. Callum Burrell is asking who has seen the Helen Glover gold post box out on their runs and where is it for those that want to tick it off?
Oh, that's a great one. So I love the post boxes because so Heather and I won the first gold of the games, and mine is the furthest south and hers is the furthest north that you can possibly get. So she's up in Scotland in Lossiemouth with hers, and mine is right the way down in Penzance. So 10 points to anybody who gets to run past that post box, because you do have to make a bit of an effort to get there.
Brilliant. Steve Dwight says he loved what you said about making things normal. Do you think that's a strategy anyone can apply to things they're afraid of?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, different things work for different people. But for me, normalising situations, I learned a lot from that Olympic final. And so if I do anything, I do some public speaking and things like that about my rowing and motivational speaking. And I apply that then. I normalise it. I pretend I'm just going in to talk to a room with my friends and make it just feel like it's just any other day. And so those nerves can definitely be calmed. And so if I talk to schools or anything and people who are about to go into exams, I say just make it normal, just make it a day. You know, people who suffer from maybe an anxiety in an exam situation can really kind of bring that anxiety down if they just remind themselves it's just the same pen, same piece of paper, just the same questions, the same puzzles, but just the environment is slightly different.
Yeah. Hope that helps, Steve. Diane Bromley says, so inspirational hearing a journey from a normal woman to an Olympian. Do you think it's ever too late to start on a life-changing journey?
I love that question because no, it's definitely not too late. And I was 21 when I started rowing. And even though obviously that's still young in the scheme of things, it's old in terms of sport and in terms of starting new things. And I would just say anybody can start something at any age that will change your life, and it doesn't have to be in sport. But parkrun's an amazing example of I mean the number of lives that it's changed of people who aren't just young. It is incredible. And so whether it's parkrun or whether it's something else, I think it's never ever too late to do that thing. If you've got a niggle in the back of your head, you think you want to try something or do something, then I would just say do it.
Brilliant. Tim Smith says, how did you get into parkrun? Can you remember that first time?
Let me try and remember. I think so. I trained for a marathon in 2017. So after the Rio Olympics, I trained for a marathon in the London Marathon, and I used parkrun a few times just to try and kind of, because I was losing a bit of motivation because I was just running by myself. And I remember signing up, and I got the wristband, and I thought, all right, now I've got the wristband, I have to turn up and do one. And so yeah, I think it was just as a bit of motivation for me to run. And I remember being quite nervous because I had that feeling of young teenage me turning up a cross-country race and not knowing where to stand and what to do, but it all became really clear. I turned up and everyone was really friendly and they gave a really good clear briefing and off we went. And from that moment on, I haven't been anxious turning up at a parkrun. But yeah, because I was doing the marathon training, I was quite fit, so I felt I really enjoyed it. And so obviously after having Logan that year, it was quite depressing going back and running the same course and going, okay, this is going to take a little while to build the fitness back.
Oh, it's such a bugger, isn't it? Diane, oh no, that was Diane Bromley's question. Claire Carlin says, what is it about parkrun that excites you the most?
I think it's Well, I'd say there's two things. There's one, the diverse range of people. You know, the fact that anybody can turn up and anybody can complete it, and there's that patience. There's that sense of anybody can do it at any speed, and there's so much admiration for the fastest runners, and there's so much admiration and respect for the slowest runners, and it doesn't matter where you fall in between that, which I love. And then it also, like I said earlier, one of my favourite things is that you start your weekend with just a massive feel good of being able to cross the line and it feeling like that you've achieved something right at the beginning of the weekend.
I've met so many great mates from parkrun. It's brilliant, isn't it? Catherine Alex, she says, "Hi Helen, I was due to run the London Marathon in April, and at this rate it may not even happen in October. Do you have any advice on keeping up?" It's a bit like the Olympic question, isn't it? And adapting training plans when the race date keeps changing, which is probably worse, isn't it? Because there's a limit to how long you can keep that fitness at top end for, and you need something to strive for. So you need a fixed date. So in many ways, for say Tokyo's got this, we're going to say we're going to do it 2021, it's going to be here. And although that might not happen, at least you know when that's going to be. But it's even harder, isn't it, when that date keeps moving further and further away.
Yeah, my thought, especially for people who are going to be running the London Marathon, would be to almost have like a mini cycle of training. So kind of you don't want to be at risk of keeping up these big high miles all the way when you should have done the marathon, and then keeping trying to push that through. Almost sort of back off a bit on the mileage, so you're kind of reverting back to what you were doing a few months ago. So you're doing some slightly shorter runs, slightly less mileage in the week, and then you can start to look to have like a mini cycle. So we you know, in the Olympics you'd have a 4-year cycle. In that you'd have lots and lots of smaller cycles, so you can kind of break it down to make sure you're just enjoying your running again, I would say. Run for enjoyment. For now, run for enjoyment. Run because you feel like it, and run because you want to. And you don't have the London Marathon on your shoulder, making it kind of a bit more important and giving you that impetus to step out and put your trainers on. So if you don't do it, don't feel super guilty, because you still have that fitness, you still have that engine. Don't run through guilt, run through enjoyment. And yeah, think about maybe stepping back a bit, give your body that time to recharge. And then if was it October they've changed it to? Yes, if it's looking likely, you can, you know, you've got that time to build back up, but you'll trust what you've put in the bank already.
That's great advice. Hope that helps as well. So to end, Yvonne Turner says, "Thanks to Helen for officially opening Land's End Parkrun a week before you had the twins. And hopefully they'll see you back there again. That must have been a lovely day."
Yeah, and I look at the photos now and I'm like standing pretty much on the cliff top, opening up Land's End Parkrun, and my stomach, honestly, is huge. And there was definitely no way I was going to even think about waddling around that parkrun. But it's one I have to do, because I've never run the Land's End Parkrun, so I'm sure next time I'm home I will.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for your time this evening, Helen, and thanks to everybody who's tuned in. You can catch up with Helen on Twitter or Instagram via Helen Glover GB. As I said earlier, do check out the many parkrun social media channels in the UK and across the world, as well as subscribing to the various parkrun podcasts out there. Now more than ever, it's important that we all come together and support each other. The Parkrun family is there for us all, and we will get through this together. Thanks so much, Helen. See you later.
See you.